Well. Welcome back to New York Sports Wicker Media. I am Watsu-K99, and it is time for the Sunday Sports Sermon. So I have a few things that I want to talk about, and I'm just going to hit on a couple things really quickly here. This is going to be like lightning fast. We're just going to punch a few things and get right through this. And I'm going to include one new feature to the video on the channel that I want to talk about that I'm pretty excited for. One thing in the news this weekend has really bothered me. This report from Buster Olney that if Jacob de Grom does opt out of his contract with the New York Mets as expected, the Atlanta Braves are expected to be his preferred destination. I believe at this point Jacob de Grom is pretty much all about the money, and I don't begrudge an athlete for being about the money. I do have a problem with him opting out of his contract when he has not thrown a major league pitch in over a year. That I have an issue with. To me, he hasn't earned the privilege to opt out. As great as he was, this is a what have you done for me lately business. That's what sports is. We have short attention spans, we have short memories, generally speaking. And am I supposed to really believe that, by the way, the Atlanta Braves are going to outbid Steve Cohen? The only way I could see the Braves taking DeGrom away from the Mets is if DeGrom makes the decision that he no longer wants to be a Met. And I cannot think of a reason why that would be. The Mets are going to be a contender for a while. They have the deep pockets. DeGrom they're the only organization DeGrom has ever known. They drafted him from Stetson University, a true powerhouse. Quick, name what state Stetson University is in. I would have had to have looked it up. I think most people would. So, and DeGrom has talked in the past that he really admires David Wright and that he is very interested in staying with one franchise for his career. Well, at the end of the day, we're going to find out. But I am very curious to see what DeGrom does. And I don't really think even how he pitches this year is going to make a difference. He'll probably be back towards the end of July, would be my estimate. He's probably going to pitch about 3 to 4 times in the minor leagues, I would say, at least. I don't expect him till towards the end of July. But no matter what, he's probably going to opt out anyway. My question is, how loyal is he? So and keep in mind with the Mets, Max Scherzer is under contract for one more year, then he can opt out. Chris Bassett has an option for next year. Carlos Carrasco is a free agent. Taijuan Walker is a free agent. Right now, what's the Mets rotation without DeGrom going forward? David Peterson, Tyler McGill. There's not much else. And they certainly don't have the prospects to bring up because their pitching depth is it's nothing at this point. But the draft will be coming up soon. They do have, I think, 5 picks in the top 90 do the Mets. And I hope they bring in at least one starting pitcher who is close to being ready for the major leagues. So that's my little thing about the Mets. They're about to, as of this recording, they're about to start the rubber game of their 3-game series against the Texas Rangers. Now, I wanted to do something a little different. I wanted to do lists. I am very much into countdowns, doing rankings and things of that nature. They're fun to take apart. So I'm just going to I think in each Sunday sermon, I'm going to do a different list from now on, or for the foreseeable future. And I'm going to do my top 5 this or my top 5 that. We'll just kind of decide on it. Of course, let me know in the comments. If you have an idea for a top 5 list that you would like me to do, let me know what it is, and I'll definitely consider it. Because, hey, this is interactive. I want to hear from you all. I want to know what your thoughts are, any questions that you have. This is a back and forth. It's not meant to just be me speaking at you all. So today I'm going to do my top 5 favorite athletes of my lifetime, which goes back about 30 to 40 years, depending on if you count memory versus when I was born. So the top 5 athletes, it was very difficult to narrow this down. I had about 8 or 9 guys that could have easily gone into this, but there were a few that I just simply could not leave out. And I'm going to start with number 5, and that is Jose Reyes. Number 7 was with the Mets for quite a few years, for about a decade, all things total. I have always been a fan of speedy leadoff hitters. I love speed. I've never been the hardest hitter myself as a baseball player. I could hit a good line drive, but I was never known for hitting a ball over the fence. I don't even think I ever even hit a home run in Little League, at least not one over the fence. I may have had one inside the Parker, but so I enjoyed defense, speed, stolen bases. And Jose Reyes came to the Mets, I believe, in 2004 and simply electrified the franchise. They absolutely needed it. This was coming off the absolute free agency nightmare of, Jeremy Burnett, Roger Cedeno, Mo Vaughn, trading for Roberto Alomar. Just a team that flopped, completely flopped. Tom Glavine, of course, can't forget him. That's stiff. Still a little bitterness about the Braves, but hey, that's never going to go away. What can I say? But Reyes really signaled the new era of the Mets that lasted for a little while. David Wright, Carlos Beltran, Carlos Delgado, Pedro Martinez all came along, but Jose Reyes was the catalyst. And a lot of people consider themselves David Wright people. To me, it's always going to be Jose Reyes because I just felt he was irreplaceable. And when he left for Miami, that turned out to be the truth. Number 4 is Henrik Lundqvist, goaltender of the New York Rangers for 15 years, roughly. And he recently retired. I believe number 6, I believe it is the all-time leader in wins in the National Hockey League. He also signified a new era, in this case, of Rangers hockey. Because the Rangers, as long as I've been watching them, they are usually a good team. But that era from about 1998 to, let's say, about 2004, which for me was the absolute dregs of Rangers hockey. I was used to playoffs, and in that time frame, before the NHL had their salary cap, Neil Smith and whatnot, general manager at the time, they were just throwing as much money as they could. Later, Glenn Sather, signed Bobby Holik, Darius Kasparaitis, Theo Fleury, bringing in stiffs like Igor Ulanov on defense, the Dave Karpas, Valery Kamensky. Oh boy, that was brutal. So that whole era, and and then when they traded another player who I'm going to get to in a moment, I'm going to reference him at number 3. It really felt that the Rangers were in the abyss. The lockout happens, a whole year is missed, the salary cap is implemented, and it forced the Rangers to start using their own players and not simply throw enough crap at the wall and see what sticks. And that's exactly what happened. And they had drafted Henrik Lundqvist just not that long ago in the 200s of the draft. He wasn't exactly a first-round pick, but he had been the top goalie in Europe. And he came, he saw, and he conquered New York. It took him very little time to earn the starting goaltending job away from Kevin Weeks. And he never looked back. And he was the starter for the Rangers for 15 years. And he really played for a team that did not have a whole heck of a lot of talent around him. Who is the elite scorer that he ever really played with? Jaromir Jagr for 1 year? Maybe. Jagr was great for that 1 year. Then it was the likes of Marian Gaborik, Rick Nash, good players, to be sure, very good players, but not elite level superstars. Lundqvist was the Rangers, and the Rangers were Lundqvist. It was about playing defense, especially under John Tortorella, and if they had that go-to scorer, maybe they actually would have won that. Look at Dominik Hasek. Maybe they would have won a Stanley Cup. But Dominik Hasek with Buffalo, he only got to one final with Buffalo, and he was absolutely the best goalie of his generation. But they could only get to one final, same as Lundqvist, because he didn't have enough around him. So Lundqvist is just the guy that I am very proud was a Ranger. What they say, the night he retired, a Rangers legend, a New York icon. That sums him up exactly. And, people can mock not having a championship. Well, at the same breath, you can also mock Dan Marino, Ted Williams, Ernie Banks, and all the other great athletes who did not win a championship, too. Just because you didn't win a championship, it doesn't mean you weren't a great player. A lot of times, it just might mean that the pieces were not there as they needed to be at that given time. Whether it was the coach, whether it was the supporting cast, maybe there were injuries. I just get tired of us linking. We all want championships as fans, but it's not always the championship that defines the greatness of the player, because sometimes the player can really only do so much. So, number 3 is Brian Leach. He was the first Ranger who I really became a fan of. I was used to hockey players. Now, I really started watching hockey around 1986, 87. Those are the first years I really remember with my father. That's the one team we have in common is the New York Rangers. So, watching those MSG games, usually I get the first period, then I'd be sent off to bed. And there were certain players that I liked. Tomas Sandstrom, the right winger from Sweden, liked him. John Van Beesbrook, the goalie, always a fan. But in 1988, when this kid with the strawberry blonde hair came up, you could just tell he was special. His confidence, how fluidly he skated with the puck. He always seemed to know what to do at the right time. And the fact that his first name was Brian, same as my uncle, who for a long time was a season ticket holder, maybe that appealed to me too. I don't know. But I just felt very confident, not knowing too much about how to tell if a player was that great or not. I felt I was going to latch on to Leach. And I did. And you know what? He was the first American player to ever win the Conn Smythe Trophy as the playoff MVP when the Rangers won the Stanley Cup in 1994. Winner of 2 Norris trophies. It was a sad day when the Rangers did trade him away to Toronto, I believe it was. And then he went on to Boston for 1 more year. It would have been nice for him to have been a lifelong Ranger, or it would have been nice to have gotten a good return for him, which they didn't do. But Leach is one of those players that really defined an era of Rangers hockey. Not the most outgoing guy in the world. He was just not meant to be a captain after Mark Messier left. He was just there to do his job, and he did it great. And there's something to be said for that. Number 2, we're going to get into the Jets right now. Number 2 is going to be Chad Pennington, quarterback of the Jets. He is maybe the athlete I am most defensive of. Or, if somebody takes a shot at him, I will jump to his defense in a nanosecond. Chad Pennington, to me, is as intelligent a leader as I've seen in the NFL. He always knew his limitations, he knew his strengths, and he handled them accordingly. Now, I still say to this day, if he didn't tear his rotator cuff twice, he would be at least a Pro Bowl quarterback several times over. I mean, you name the quarterback, if they tear their rotator cuff twice, you tell me how hard they're going to be throwing the football. Now, Pennington didn't have the greatest arm strength anyway. We know that, but he was always able to find Randy Marshall when he had to. He had enough arm strength to do the job. If scouts didn't think he did, then he would not have been the first quarterback drafted in that class ahead of Mark Bulger and the cheater who the fraudulent cheater who's now in Tampa Bay. So to me, Pennington will always be the guy that I defend. When I would play Madden, I would you would pass like certain skill drills, and you could increase the attributes on some of your players. You had certain attributes you could increase there. With drills, you could increase for a quarterback their accuracy, their strength. I would, of course, always give Chad as much strength as I could give him because you could only give Chad Pennington so much more accuracy than what he already had. It's just a shame the injuries happened the way they did, and I got to be honest. When he went to Miami and he won the division with them when they beat the Jets deserved it. And it didn't even matter that the Jets lost that game because a lot of people don't even remember. The Pennington Favre game. Week 17 in New Jersey, people thought that game was for the division. It wasn't. Because Baltimore, I think, had won earlier, and I want to say New England had won also earlier that day. At that point, the Jets were done. I mean, the previous week they had lost a game to Seattle that I still have nightmares about that game. To me, it was the game that proved that Eric Mangini was completely over his head as a head coach. In fact, Joe Beningo and Evan Roberts, their rant from WFAN is still on YouTube. You can actually find that if you look Joe Evans Seattle Jets. You can actually find that link. So to me, it was heartbreaking when Pennington left and we got Brett Favre, because we knew Favre did not really want to be here necessarily, and then he was only here 1 year, and of course he wanted to get his revenge on Green Bay, and off to Minnesota he went. I hope Chad Pennington will be inducted into the Ring of Honor very soon. I think he absolutely deserves it. Outside of Curtis Martin, I'm hard-pressed to think of another Jet from that team who deserves it more than he does. Curtis is in, Wayne Corbett's in, and now Mangold, Revis, and Brick are going into. To me, Chad Pennington absolutely deserves to be on that level with those players for what he meant to this team. Granted, it is a what could have happened story, which makes it a little bit bittersweet. Um, and I don't even want him to. He's currently a coach, I believe, right now in Kentucky. I personally hope he runs for public office. I would actually. I think he's that good of a human being that he should actually run for political office. And finally, number one, my number one athlete, favorite athlete of all time. I'm wearing this, even though I'm not a fan of the Black Mets jerseys. This is one that's about 20 years old. I'm wearing it for Mike Piazza, number 31. Put it this way: my nickname in college was Piazza. Okay, people will call me Piazza, and I can't say that I minded it. Piazza was a player, even with the Dodgers, I felt a lot of respect for as a fellow Italian. I liked him as a catcher because I was a catcher for a little while also. I knew that he had been drafted in the 60s, the 62nd round of the MLB draft, and it was pretty interesting to see him work his way up. I never imagined, man, if Mike Piazza was a Met, what would that be like? That never crossed my mind. It never felt like a realistic possibility. So when the trade happened and they acquired him from the Florida Marlins, it felt like the Mets had become, again, legitimate. You know how I'm picking these players where it feels like it's the beginning of a new era? I guess there's something to be said for that. So the Mets had a decent team, I think, at that point in early 1997. It was kind of coming up, but it only had so much. Like there wasn't juice around them. They were just a team, like a jag, as we would say, like just a guy for a draft prospect. The Mets were just a team, is how I would describe it. They hadn't been exciting in, my goodness, in probably 7, 8 years at that point. Piazza changed everything immediately. It was really him. He put people in the seats. He got people interested in the Mets. And great call by Nelson Doubleday because remember, the Mets traded for Piazza in the last year of his contract. And it was Nelson Doubleday who told Steve Phillips, sign him to a contract. And they did that. So there have been so many moments. I mean, huge home runs off Billy Wagner and Trevor Hoffman, the best closers probably of their time. Then, of course, the 9/11 home run, the 11/8 go-ahead home run against Terry Mulholland and the Braves. That's always a big one. A big home run against John Smoltz in Game 6 of the ill-fated 1999 NLCS that tied the game. Of course, the game did not turn out as we would have hoped, but the Mets did rally, and Piazza came through against John Smoltz in one of the most exciting home runs I've ever watched. In terms of baseball, that to me, that was as big a home run as I ever saw him hit. I think 9/11 will always mean the most because of the other reasons. But that one against Smoltz meant so much for me. So, yeah, so that's my countdown. Jose Reyes, number 5. Number 4, Henrik Lundqvist. Number 3, Brian Leach. Number 2, Chad Pennington. And number 1 is Mike Piazza. So let me know your thoughts. Tell me who maybe some of your favorites are, your favorite athletes of all time. If you're going to do a 5-to-1, who'd you put on it? And if you have any ideas for other lists that you would like me to do, just drop a little line in the comments. You know what to do. And I will see you again from you know where, the Wicker Chair.